I want to start today with a visualization exercise. I want you to close your eyes for a second.
Okay.
Unless you're driving, please don't close your eyes if you're driving.
Very important disclaimer.
But if you're safe, close them. Imagine it's a Tuesday morning in, say, 2026. You wake up, sun is streaming in, you grab your phone to doom scroll or, check your portfolio, whatever your morning vice is.
Right. The usual routine.
You open your brokerage app, Robinhood, Fidelity, whatever, and you type in those four familiar letters. TSLA. You're looking for Tesla. And nothing.
Silence. The screen is just blank. Or maybe it says ticker not found.
Exactly. And, usually in the financial world, if a ticker disappears, it is a catastrophe. It means the company went bankrupt, it got delisted for fraud, or maybe it was taken private in some hostile takeover. It's panic time.
Your stomach drops.
But in the scenario we are diving into today, that disappearance isn't a death, it's a metamorphosis.
It's a shedding of skin. Because in this scenario, Tesla, as a standalone entity, ceases to exist. But it hasn't failed. It has evolved into something the source material describes as a colossal monster.
A monster, I love that.
A new ticker symbol appears in your feed. Maybe it's just the letter X. Maybe it's XH for X Holdings. But the crucial thing to understand is that this isn't just a car company anymore.
No, not even close. It's a fusion, a complete consolidation of Elon Musk's entire ecosystem. We are talking about 6 distinct industry-leading companies slamming together into one operational organism.
And we really need to be precise about what those companies are, because the breadth here is just staggering.
Lay them out for us.
You have Tesla, obviously, covering electric vehicles and sustainable energy storage. Then you have SpaceX, the dominant force in aerospace. And let's be honest, the only real path to Mars right now.
The only game in town, really.
Then you've got XAI, the artificial intelligence arm, building large language models like Grok. You have X, formerly Twitter, covering global social media and that real-time information flow.
The world's nervous system, some would say.
Then there's Neuralink, building the brain-computer interface. And finally, the Boring Company, digging the tunnels for infrastructure. 6 pillars.
It's like the Avengers of heavy industry assembling into one giant mecha.
That's a good way to put it.
The source material uses this really vivid visual metaphor that I just love. It asks you to imagine these distinct elements. You've got rockets, brain chips, lines of AI code, giant boring machines, all orbiting the Earth like satellites.
Okay, I can picture that.
They're spinning faster and faster, and then gravity just takes hold. They slam together, boom, into a single giant X logo.
It's a powerful image. But we have to move beyond the sci-fi aesthetics and look at the economic reality of what that combination actually means. The source establishes the premise that this is not a standard corporate merger. This isn't Disney buying Fox.
Right. This is not Amazon buying Whole Foods.
Not at all. The source compares this to the birth of an empire.
That word empire is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
It is. It's chosen very, very carefully. We aren't talking about a conglomerate. We're talking about an entity where the combined revenue, profit, and more importantly, technical capability would exceed the GDP of most G7 nations.
Wow.
It transcends state power.
That is a massive claim. I mean, we're used to companies being big, sure. Apple is huge. Microsoft is a behemoth. But transcending state power is a whole other level.
Yeah, paradigm shift.
So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack the why behind this theoretical consolidation. Why merge? Why put all these, ridiculously ambitious eggs in one basket? And more importantly, what happens when you take these 6 companies that are literally changing the physical and digital world and you make them operate as a single organism?
And that is where it gets really fascinating. Because the source material argues that this merger doesn't just make a big company, it actually challenges the textbook definitions of economics. We're going to look at how this completely changes the concepts of land, labor, and capital.
The fundamentals.
The absolute fundamentals. And we need to discuss the source's ultimate promise, that this consolidation leads to something it calls infinite abundance.
Infinite abundance. That sounds like a religious promise, doesn't it? Or at least a very, very utopian one. But before we get to Mars and the utopia, we have to look at the messy reality of today. Because the first reason for this merger is surprisingly practical. It's not about Mars yet. It's about paperwork.
It is. It's about organizational friction. The source paints this really vivid picture of the current state of affairs for Elon Musk. I mean, just imagine him right now. He is the CEO or technical lead of nearly all these companies.
Juggling all of them.
Exactly. That means he is juggling shareholder meetings for Tesla, separate fundraising rounds for SpaceX, trying to manage advertisers and subscription models for X. The source depicts him as being literally buried in piles of documents.
I can absolutely picture that. Just mounds of legal briefs, compliance forms, SEC filings, tax documents. It sounds completely exhausting.
It's what you might call the conglomerate discount, applied to a single human being's time and attention.
Explain that a bit more.
Well, think about the legal reality here. These are separate entities. Tesla is a public company with a specific set of shareholders and a specific board of directors.
With very specific expectations.
And fiduciary duties. Then you have SpaceX, which is a private company with a totally different set of investors. xAI is another separate entity with its own cap table.
Right. And that concept of fiduciary duty is so important here. If you're the CEO of Tesla, you have a legal obligation to Tesla shareholders to maximize their value. Full stop. You can't just take a brilliant Tesla battery engineer and say, hey, go work on the SpaceX Starship for a month because it's cool and it helps humanity.
You absolutely cannot. That would be a misappropriation of corporate resources.
Yeah.
The Tesla shareholders would and should sue immediately.
They'd say, we're paying that engineer's salary to build better cars and batteries, not rockets for Mars.
Precisely. So currently, the entire ecosystem is full of these high, thick walls. Every time resources or talent or even just an idea needs to move from one company to another, it's a contract, it's a negotiation, it's lawyers and accountants, it's friction.
So the immediate solution this X Holdings offers is just extreme efficiency. By merging, the administrative burden just collapses.
The walls come down.
Yeah.
Instead of 4 or 5 separate earnings calls a quarter, where he has to explain different strategies to different groups of investors.
There's just one.
One earnings call. The source really emphasizes this drastic reduction. Imagine one single report, maybe just 4 times a year, that covers everything from Mars rockets to brain implants. The bureaucratic overhead, the sheer amount of duplicated effort, it just evaporates.
But it's not just about saving time on Zen calls or avoiding meetings with lawyers, right? The source talks about something much more profound called the fluidity of talent and technology.
This is the synergy argument on steroids. Currently, as we said, corporate structures create silos. If you work for Tesla, you work for Tesla. You can't just walk over to the SpaceX campus and start welding a rocket fin.
HR would have a meltdown.
HR, legal, intellectual property, payroll, liability. It's an absolute nightmare to move people around, even for a short-term project.
But in the X Holdings scenario, those silos, they just dissolve.
Completely. The entire talent pool becomes fluid. The source describes engineers moving freely between a Tesla factory floor in Texas and a SpaceX launch pad in Florida as if they're just moving between departments.
That's a powerful idea. Let's dig into some specific examples the source gives of this cross-pollination. The AI one feels like the most relevant to what's happening in tech right this second.
Sure. So let's consider the vision problem. Tesla is all in on solving full self-driving using cameras. That is primarily a computer vision problem, teaching a car to see the world, recognize objects, predict behavior, and make decisions in milliseconds.
A ridiculously hard problem.
One of the hardest in AI. Now, let's say the Tesla AI team hits a snag. They're stuck on a really tricky edge case. Maybe the car is struggling to distinguish between a crumpled plastic bag blowing across the road and a small rock at 60 miles per hour in heavy rain.
A pretty important distinction if you're the one in the car.
Crucial. A life or death distinction. Now, in the current siloed world, the Tesla team has to solve that internally. Maybe they hire consultants. Maybe they try to recruit new PhDs. That takes months, maybe years.
Okay, so what happens in the X empire?
They just call the xAI team, the people building Grok, the large language model. They walk down the virtual hallway.
Because XAI has a different kind of expertise. They're not just working on vision, they're working on reasoning, on pattern matching at a massive, massive scale.
Exactly. The problem might not be just seeing the object, but reasoning about its properties. Is it light? Will it move? In a merged entity, the Grok team can be instantly deployed to help solve the Tesla bottleneck. And this is key. It works both ways.
What do you mean?
Well, what does xAI need more than anything else to build better models?
Data. Real-world data.
The best data. And Tesla has millions of cars on the road, with 8 cameras each, capturing real-world video data every single second of every day. That is arguably the richest, most valuable dataset on the planet for training AI.
And currently, sharing that data between Tesla, the public company, and xAI, the private one, is a legal and privacy headache.
It's a nightmare. A privacy minefield and an intellectual property fortress. But if it's one company, it's just an internal data transfer.
Yeah.
The neural net training data from the cars feeds the large language models, improving their understanding of the physical world. And the reasoning capabilities of the language models help the cars make smarter, safer decisions. It's instant, frictionless cross-pollination.
Okay, that makes a ton of sense. Another example that really stuck out to me was materials science. This feels a bit more, nuts and bolts, but the source highlights it as a major, major advantage.
It is. Think about SpaceX. They're building these massive starships out of a very specific stainless steel alloy, right?
Yeah, that shiny metal.
Correct. They use something called 30X cold-rolled stainless steel. It's a proprietary alloy they developed. It's designed to withstand the cryogenic temperatures of liquid oxygen in space and the absolute inferno of atmospheric reentry. It is incredibly tough stuff.
And by a complete coincidence, Tesla is building the Cybertruck out of stainless steel.
Precisely. Now, think about the current friction. If Tesla wants to use that exact 30X alloy, they probably have to license it from SpaceX. They have to figure out transfer pricing.
Transfer pricing.
How much does Tesla pay SpaceX for the material or the patent? It has to be a fair market rate. If they underpay, SpaceX's private investors can sue, saying Musk is giving away their valuable IP to his public company. If they overpay, Tesla's public shareholders can sue, saying he's siphoning their cash to his private venture.
It's bureaucracy actively blocking innovation. It's crazy.
It is. It's sand in the gears. In a unified company, that friction completely disappears. The advanced alloys developed for a rocket booster can be immediately applied to the truck on the assembly line. The groundbreaking casting techniques developed for the Cybertruck can be used to mass-produce Starship parts more cheaply. No lawyers needed. It's just an email between engineering teams.
And then there's the wildest combination of all, bio-digital convergence. This is where Neuralink meets the Optimus robot.
This is where we start moving firmly into science fiction territory, but it's grounded in the technology they are actually building today. Neuralink's whole purpose is to decode brainwaves, specifically the electrical signals of intention.
Right, when a paralyzed patient thinks, move hand left, Neuralink captures that electrical signature.
And the Optimus robot is, at its core, a physical vessel waiting for instructions. A humanoid body without a brain.
I see where you're going with this.
The source suggests a direct integration, using Neuralink's technology to refine the fine motor control systems of the Optimus robot. Think about the biggest challenge in robotics right now. It's getting a robot to move smoothly, gracefully, like a human. We move with incredible dexterity because our brains send very complex, nuanced signals that we don't even think about.
So if you have a database of human neural signals for movement, which is exactly what Neuralink is building with every patient, you can feed that directly into the robot's motor control system.
Exactly. You literally crowdsource human movement data directly from the brain itself to program the labor force of the future. It bypasses the clumsy process of trying to code movement from the outside in.
That's unsettling and brilliant at the same time. This idea of a fluid workforce, fluid technology, it all leads to this concept the source calls the one pocket theory.
Yes, and this addresses a lot of the drama and the headlines we see in the news today. Investors suing because they think resources are being siphoned off. Hey, why did you send those 10,000 NVIDIA H100 chips to xAI? They belong to Tesla.
That's a real story, a real conflict that's happening now.
It's a massive source of friction. It's a fundamental conflict of interest. If you are a Tesla shareholder, you want every single one of those valuable AI chips at Tesla, training the FSD computer. If you're an xAI investor, you want them at xAI, training Grok. When Musk moves chips from one to the other, someone loses. Someone feels cheated.
But if everyone just holds shares in the one parent company, X Holdings,
The conflict vanishes. It's all one pocket. The question, why did you move the chips, becomes a non-issue. It's like asking why you moved money from your checking account to your savings account. It's all your money. A benefit to xAI is a direct, proportional benefit to the holding company, which you own.
So it allows the emperor, as the source sometimes calls the leader of this entity, to act with what the source calls imperial speed.
Imperial speed, I love that term. It implies the ability to pour the entire organization's resources, all the capital, all the chips, all the genius engineers into a single bottleneck to solve it instantly.
No committee.
He doesn't have to ask permission from 3 different boards of directors. He doesn't have to get sign-off from 4 different legal teams. He just points the finger, and the entire empire moves as one.
It sounds incredibly powerful, maybe even frighteningly efficient. But let's shift gears. We've talked about the how, the raw efficiency of the merger. Now I want to talk about the what. The source material makes a really, really bold claim that this merger doesn't just improve a business, it creates a new economic formula.
This is the part that really got my attention. It suggests we should be burning the textbooks.
Right. I remember this from college. If you've ever taken Econ 101, you know the drill. To make anything, a toaster, a car, a house, you need three fundamental things: land, labor, and capital.
Exactly. Those are the factors of production. Land is the physical space where you build your factory. It costs rent or a mortgage. Labor is the people who build the thing. They require wages, benefits, safety regulations. And capital is the machinery, the tools, and the money to buy it all.
And that has been the fundamental constraint on all human production since the beginning of civilization. You always, eventually, run out of one of them. Not enough land, not enough workers, not enough money.
And the source argues that once this Tesla empire expands to Mars, that entire formula becomes waste paper.
Let's break that down because that's a huge claim. Let's start with land.
Okay, land. On Earth, land is the ultimate bottleneck. As Mark Twain supposedly said, buy land, they're not making it anymore.
It's finite.
It's absolutely finite. If you want to build a gigafactory in California or Berlin or Shanghai, what do you face? First, you face astronomical prices for the real estate itself. Then you face a maze of zoning regulations.
And IMBY issues, not in my backyard.
Exactly. Local residents who don't want a giant factory next door. There are environmental impact studies that can take years, even a decade. You have speculators who buy up adjacent land to hold you hostage for higher prices. It takes immense capital and time just to secure the dirt to build on.
Now, compare that to the source's vision of building on Mars or the moon.
The source explicitly states the land cost there is $0.
$0. Not a discount, zero.
Zero. There are no property taxes on Mars. There is no zoning commission on the moon. There are no indigenous land rights claims to negotiate. There are no holdouts refusing to sell their crater because they think they can get a better price next year.
It's free real estate. Literally infinite space to build factories, solar farms, habitats, without the single biggest cost driver of terrestrial economics.
It completely changes the equation. If your land cost drops to zero, your upfront capital requirements for any expansion just plummet. You don't need $1 billion loan from a bank to buy the site, just need the fuel to get your equipment there. The scale of your ambition is no longer limited by your proximity to a port or a highway.
Okay, so land is effectively free and infinite, but then you immediately hit the second constraint: labor. Who is going to build a factory on Mars? You can't exactly bus people up there for a daily commute.
And even if you could, humans are expensive. We are very high-maintenance machines, especially in hostile environments.
We're fragile.
Extremely. We need to eat, we need to sleep, we need healthcare, we need entertainment. On Mars, you have to add pressurized, oxygenated habitat to that list. That's a premium feature. And we strike if conditions are bad or we feel we're not being paid enough.
Enter the Optimus factor.
Enter the humanoid robot. The source positions Optimus not just as another product that Tesla sells, but as the primary worker in this new off-world economy.
And the advantages are just glaringly obvious from a pure production standpoint. They don't sleep, they don't need lunch breaks, they certainly don't unionize.
They work 247 in a vacuum, in freezing temperatures, in high radiation environments that would kill a human in minutes. And the source makes this critical point about the cost curve. With human labor, costs tend to go up over time, inflation, cost of living adjustments, demands for better pay.
The arrow only points up.
Right. With robotics, the cost curve follows something like Moore's law. It plummets.
Right. The first prototype robot cost $1 million to build. The 10,000th robot off the assembly line cost $20,000. The millionth costs maybe $5,000.
Precisely. And once you own the robot, the hourly wage is essentially just the cost of electricity to recharge it and the cost of spare parts.
And if you have vast solar panel arrays on a planet with no cloudy days, the electricity is effectively free too.
Which leads us to the most mind-bending concept in the entire source material, the self-replicating loop. This is where we move from standard economics into something that looks more like theoretical physics or biology.
This was the part that gave me actual chills. Walk us through this loop step by step.
Okay. So you're on Mars. You land a single starship. It carries a few seed Optimus robots, some solar panels, and some basic mining and refining equipment. What is the first job?
The robots get out and set up the solar panels.
Right. So now you have a source of free energy from the sun. Step one is complete. What do they do next?
They use that energy to power the mining equipment.
Exactly. They set up the mining gear, which they also carried with them, to extract raw materials from the Martian soil. Iron, silicon, aluminum, all the basic building blocks are there.
Okay, so now we have free energy and a steady supply of raw materials.
Then they take those materials and that energy to a simple 3D printing and manufacturing bay, and they produce what?
More Optimus robots and
Yes,
more solar panels.
exactly. And those new robots, what's their first job?
To go out and install the new solar panels, which provides more energy to power more mining, to build more robots.
You got it. It's a feedback loop of production.
It's an exponential curve. It's not linear growth.
It is pure exponential growth. The only real input needed is the initial seed capital and the technology itself, the blueprints. After that, the system grows itself, doubling its productive capacity on a regular cycle.
This is what the source means by infinite abundance.
Yes, usually economics is defined as the study of scarcity. How do we allocate finite resources? Who gets what? But the source introduces this concept of an economy of abundance that completely replaces the economy of scarcity.
Because if land is free and infinite, and labor is effectively free and self-replicating,
Then production capacity becomes virtually limitless. In economic terms, the supply curve shifts infinitely to the right. The cost of producing one more of anything, a house, a car, a ton of food, approaches zero.
the visual the source describes here is just incredible. It's a city on Mars, a fully functioning industrial base built entirely by robots before a single human colonist even arrives to live in it.
That image represents a fundamental shift in human history, a moment where scarcity no longer dictates value or controls our destiny.
Think about the deflationary pressure of that. I mean, it's almost impossible to get your head around. If you can build a house for the cost of raw materials and zero labor, the cost of housing collapses globally. If you can grow food in automated hydroponic farms tended by robots, the cost of food collapses.
It completely upends how we value things. What is a house worth when you can print one in a week for pennies?
It sounds incredibly utopian. It sounds like Star Trek, but it also sounds incredibly centralized. Which brings us to the next segment. We're talking about a single entity that controls this engine of abundance. The source calls it the X Empire, and it claims this entity represents a power greater than nations.
This is where we have to put on our geopolitical hats. The source is very clear that we are moving beyond corporate scale.
We mentioned the GDP comparison earlier, the combined revenue eclipsing that of G7 nations.
But the financial power is just the starting point. The source argues that technology control is ultimately more powerful than money. Money is just a medium of exchange. It's a social construct. Technology is capability. It's the ability to do things.
Right, you can have $1 trillion in the bank, but if you can't get to space, and I have a rocket, I have the power.
I win. You can't buy a ticket. The only rocket owner won't sell one to you at any price. And this X entity, this empire, has 4 pillars of control that, when combined, create a form of technological sovereignty.
Let's go through those pillars one by one. The first one, connectivity, Starlink.
A global low Earth orbit communication network. There is no other system like it on the planet. No single nation can rival it. No single nation can easily shut it down. We've already seen in recent geopolitical conflicts, like in Ukraine, how absolutely crucial Starlink is.
It kept a country online.
It kept a country's military and government communicating. If you control the switch to the global internet, you control the flow of coordination for entire armies, for entire economies.
Okay, pillar 2, energy. Tesla energy.
This is often the overlooked part of the empire. People focus on the cars.
Yeah.
But control over power generation solar, especially storage, the megapacks, is control over the literal lifeblood of civilization. If the grid goes down, the person with the battery is king.
You control who gets power and when.
You provide the resilience. You become essential infrastructure.
Pillar 3, information. This is where X comes in.
Real-time access to global data. Public sentiment. The flow of communication. It's not just a social network. The source calls it the global town square where narratives are shaped and contested. If you control the algorithm, you influence what billions of people think is important and what they think is true.
And the fourth, and frankly, the spookiest pillar, biological data, Neuralink.
Access to and eventually integration with human neural data. This is the final frontier. If the other companies control the external world around you, your communication, your energy, your information, Neuralink interfaces with the world inside you.
So when you put those 4 together, communications, energy, information, and biology, what do you actually get?
The source suggests you get a superstate, a new kind of governance system for humanity, especially as we become a multi-planetary species.
A superstate. So X Holdings effectively becomes the government.
Well, the argument is that because it controls the transport to get there, SpaceX,
Hmm.
the habitat you live in, built by Tesla and Boring Co., the communication you use, Starlink,
Yeah.
and the labor that builds everything, Optimus, it sits above the traditional nation-state system, especially in a colony scenario like Mars.
Right. I mean, think about the first Martian colony. There is no U.S. Constitution on Mars. There is no European Union. There is no UN charter. There is just the company that got you there.
Who provides the oxygen?
X.
Who provides the water reclamation?
X.
Who provides the internet connection back to Earth? X. Who employs the robots that maintain the life support? X.
In that environment, the company is the state. The terms of service are the law.
Exactly. The source uses this powerful visual of maps of Earth covered by the web of Starlink satellites, which then transitions to these connected future cities on Earth and Mars, where X is the central nervous system. It implies that on Mars, X isn't just another company, it is the literal infrastructure of life itself.
That is a profound and, frankly, a daunting thought. And it leads us directly to the question the listener is probably screaming right now. Okay, this sounds terrifying or amazing, depending on my perspective, but what does it mean for me? What does it mean for my 401k?
This is the investment thesis. This is the final segment of the source's argument.
And the source acknowledges the fear, right? It asks the question directly.
Yeah.
Is one company having this much power dangerous?
That is an incredibly valid question. Centralization of power is historically very, very risky. Monopolies tend to become extractive, they tend to abuse their power because there's no one to stop them. But the source counters with a very specific, almost fatalistic argument. Fearing the future doesn't stop it from coming.
That's a tough pill to swallow. It's basically saying the wave is coming whether you like it or not, so you better learn to surf.
Right. The choice is framed as being swept away and crushed by the wave or riding it. And this brings us to what the source calls the ticket concept.
I found this metaphor really interesting. It says that buying shares in this hypothetical X holdings isn't just buying a stock. It's not like buying a share of Coca-Cola. It's buying a ticket.
A ticket to the off-world journey. The source frames stock ownership as a form of digital citizenship in this new empire. It's your claim.
So if I own shares, I have a legal claim on the wealth that this empire generates.
Exactly. It represents a legal right, an enforceable claim, to demand your share of the astronomical wealth generated in a system where the fundamental constraints of land and labor have been removed.
It's kind of like if you could have bought shares in the Dutch East India Company before they set sail, or shares in the United States itself when it was just 13 colonies, you're buying a piece of the entire enterprise.
That's the analogy the source is pushing. If this entity is going to unlock infinite abundance through robotics and space mining, the value created will be incomprehensible by current standards. It won't be measured in billions or even trillions of dollars. It will be measured in fractions of the solar system's resources. If you own a piece of the entity, you get a piece of that pie.
And the source paints this very seductive picture of passive participation. This is the ultimate dream, right?
It is the ultimate capitalist dream. The source invites the listener to enjoy their daily life. You know, you drink your coffee, you go for a walk, you spend time with your family. Meanwhile, on Mars, thousands of Optimus robots are mining ore and building habitats, and starships are hauling cargo between planets.
And my assets, my ticket, is growing in value because the robots are working for me 247.
You are passively participating in the economic expansion of consciousness and industry across the solar system purely by holding that ticket.
But there is a darker, more urgent side to that advice, isn't there? It frames the investor not just as a speculator, but as a beneficiary of a post-labor world.
And that's the hook. That's the core of the investment thesis. If labor becomes effectively free, if robots can do almost everything a human can do, but better, faster, and cheaper, what happens to the value of human labor?
It plummets. Basic supply and demand. If a robot can do your job for the cost of electricity, your wage drops toward the cost of electricity.
So the source is essentially telling you, in the coming economic paradigm, you have to be on the side of capital, not the side of labor.
That is a stark, almost brutal warning disguised as investment advice. Be the owner, not the worker.
Because in a world of robotic labor, owning the robots, owning the capital, is the only real hedge against your own economic obsolescence.
So as we wrap up, let's look at the final vision the source leaves us with. It asks us to look 10 years forward.
A decade from now.
Yeah.
2036. The prediction is a world that has been fundamentally altered, and X is at the absolute center of that change.
The visual is really beautiful. It asks you to imagine you're standing on a base on Mars. You're looking out a thick-paned window. The landscape is red, harsh, but you can see structures, greenhouses, habitats, a landing pad. And in the black sky, you see a small, fragile-looking blue dot. That's Earth.
And maybe standing next to you is Musk, or maybe just the legacy of what was built. But the point is, you made it. You're there.
The source then frames the listener's position today as a binary choice. It's a fork in the road.
Watch the change happen, or own the change. It's aggressive, but it cuts right to the core of the issue. Be a spectator or be a participant.
And it leaves us with a final, really provocative thought to mull over. We've spent this whole time talking about how the old formulas of earthland, labor, capital are breaking down.
So if those formulas really are broken by space travel and robotics, if scarcity, the foundation of all economics, is truly solved,
Then what is the value of money in a post-scarcity world?
that is the ultimate question, isn't it? If you have infinite abundance, if a robot can build you a mansion for free and grow all your food for free, do you even need money? Or does that ticket, that share of X holdings, represent something else entirely?
Maybe it's not about buying things anymore. Maybe it's about access, status. Maybe it's about securing a spot for your descendants in this new civilization.
Or maybe in a post-scarcity world, the only scarcity left is human purpose. What do we do when we don't have to work?
A question for another day, I think. We'll leave you to ponder that one. Are you ready for an economy where work is optional and the very definition of value is completely redefined?
Yeah, it is the question of the 21st century.
Indeed it is. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We'll see you in the future.